Welcome to this predicted paper from onmaths. This paper represents the best guess for the upcoming exams. Please use this paper in addition to your other revision. You can complete a unique version of this paper by going to our onmaths site. Onmaths is full of free content to help you prepare for your exams, such as topic-based papers, demon questions and mini mocks. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing. So to find the gradient, we need the formula or the equation in the form y equals mx plus c, and the m there will give us what the gradient is. So we're just going to be rearranging this equation, and so I'll get my lines in. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the x's from the left hand side, and we can do that by adding 6x both sides. So we've got 6y equals, and I'm going to put the 6x first, just to match the y equals mx plus c. Right, the next thing I'm going to do is get rid of this 6, because we just want a y there. So we're going to divide by 6 both sides. So we've got y equals 1x plus 36. Now we shouldn't really write 1, but because we're looking for m, we're looking for the number before x, I've kind of left it in there to show that the gradient will be 1. To find out what the value of x is, we first of all have to find out what the value of y is. And we can notice that we've got two sets of parallel lines here, and a line going through them. And we kind of got these f angles, which we have to call corresponding angles. So we know that 2y minus 50 is equal to 78. And we must write down the reason. So corresponding angles. And corresponding angles are equal. Now here we've got an equation and we want to solve it. So we get our lines in. We'll go first of all add 50 to both sides. So we've got 2y equals 78 plus 50, which would be 128. And then we're going to halve both sides, or divide by 2. So we've got 64. So we know that y is 64. And so we look back at the diagram to find out how we'd work out x. Well, what we can do, there's a few different things we can do. We could work out the fact that these two here are vertically opposite. That would be absolutely fine. But actually, if we look at this part here and this part here, these are also two parallel lines, and we've got this angle here and this angle are going to be alternate. So I can write that down here. So angle ECB is equal to 78 degrees. So this will be 78 degrees. And the reason for that is alternate angles. And then finally, if we know this is 78 and we know that this is 64, because we know what y is, then we can work out what x is. So x equals 180, angles in a triangle, take away the 78 we know and the 64 we know. And the reason for that is angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. And just make sure you write down all the reasons as you go. And when we take away the 78 and the 64 from 180, you get 38. So x is therefore 38 degrees. So we're going to write an expression for the amount of people on the first bus. So they've started with x passengers and they've gone to 11 bus stops with x passengers. So altogether that is 12x. So we're going to have the first bus. And so we've got 12x. And then on the last bus stop, 19 passengers get on. So plus 19. Now for the second bus, well, we start with x and a further 5x come on, because 5 bus stops with x passengers, so that's 6x altogether. And then 79 get on. And it says the first bus finishes with less passengers than the first. So the first bus finishes with less. And the way we show that is with this inequality here. Now all we need to do is solve that inequality. And we've got x on both sides, so we look at the x's. We've got 12x and 6x, so we always take away the smaller amount. So we're going to take away the 6x both sides. And next thing we're going to do is take away the 19 from both sides. And so, meant to be 60. Got ahead of myself. And the last thing we do is divide by 6 both sides. And so we've got x is less than 10. Now, it says here, assuming no passengers got off either bus, what is the largest value for x? Now, it is tempting to write down 10, but it says x has to be less than 10. So the biggest number we can get that is less than 10 is 9. There's a very specific way to draw an angle bisector, and you start off with a pair of compasses and put the point on B, and then draw an arc from B. And it doesn't matter what the distance is, as long as it's kind of roughly maybe halfway between A and B. But it doesn't matter what the distance is. And then at the 2 points, so here and here, that our arc intersects line AB and BC, we're going to draw another arc up here. So I'm just going to show you, because it's normally easier. So an arc over here, and I'm going to do an arc from the other one over here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to join where the two lines join with where the two arcs join. And that is how you do an angle bisector. All of the arcs leave on the diagram because they are going to get you the marks. Arcs for marks. So in this question we basically need to add the 2 3/4 and the 2 2/5. So we're going to do 2 3/4 plus 2 2/5. Now if I just rewrite this, 2 3/4 can be written as 2 plus 3/4 plus 2 plus 2 1/5, or 2/5. So we can add the two 2's together to make 4, and then all we need to do is add the 3/4 and the 2/5. So when you add two numbers with different denominators, what we need to do is get the common denominators. And we do that by just quickly writing out the 4 and the 5 times table and seeing what the first number in both their times tables is. 16, 20, and 5, 10, 15, 20. So that's 20. So we need to get the bottoms of the fractions to 20. Now for 3/4, to get the bottom to equal 20, we need to times the 4 by 5. And whatever you do to the bottom, you've got to do to the top, so times that by 5 as well, which will be 15. And for 2/5, we'll get that bottom to 20. So we times that by 4. And so we've got to times the top by 4 as well to make it 8. So it's going to be 15 over 20 plus 8 over 20. So we need to add the numerators. So it would be 15 plus 8, which is going to be 23 over 20. Now that is a top-heavy fraction, so we can rewrite that as 1 3/20. And we can add the 4 and the 1 together to make 5 3/20. So the answer is 5 3/20. So we're asked to find angle BCE, and that is going to be this one here, because you start at B, go to C, and then go to E, and it's the angle you make. And I might just choose a different colour, because we've already got red on here. So we're looking for this angle here. Now, my advice for these kind of questions is always just try and work your way around the shape with angles you know. So, for instance, I'm going to start with this angle here, and we're going to call this angle ADC. And we know that that must be 79 degrees, and always write down the reason, and we know it is because that is an isosceles triangle. So if you look, we've got an isosceles here, this one, and this one. And the bottom two angles, and I use the word bottom because I always imagine an isosceles as being this way up. The bottom two angles in an isosceles are always equal, so that must be 79. Now we've got two of the three angles in the triangle, and the last one is going to be angle DCA. And to work out what this angle is, we're going to take it away from 180. So we're going to do 180, take away the 279s we've just worked out. And the reason for that is angles in a triangle equal 180 degrees. Okay, so when we do that, we do 180, take away the 158, and we're left with 22 degrees. So we know that this is going to be 22 degrees. And now we can actually work out angle BCE, because it's going to equal angle DCA. And the reason for that is they are vertically opposite angles. So that's just going to equal 22 degrees. Now, it is really common for these types of questions for you to get maybe 1 or even 2 marks for the answer, but 1 or 2 marks normally for the reasons and for the explanations. In fact, I've seen quite a few exam questions where you get 2 marks for the reasons and only 1 mark for the answer. We can rewrite this question as 2 over 3 divided by 20 over 1. So whenever you have an integer, it's just the same as that integer over 1. Now the rule is that we're going to keep, flip, and change. So we're going to keep the first fraction as 2/3, change the divide to a times, and flip the second fraction. Then we multiply the tops and multiply the bottoms. We can actually halve top and bottom here, and it does ask us to simplify it if possible. So our answer is 1 over 30. Whenever you have north lines, they will always be parallel. So what we have here is we have a straight line going through 2 parallel lines, which are our 2 north lines. And therefore this angle here is going to equal this angle here. And the reason for that is that the 2 angles are alternate, they're Z angles. So we can say that that is 135, and I always like to try and show the examiner the reasons. So that's because it's alternate angles. And we know also that angles on a point add up to 360. So this red angle represents the bearing of A from B. And so to find this angle out, what we're going to do is just 360 take away 135. And the reason for that is angles on a point equal 360 degrees. And when we work that out, we get the answer of 225. So our bearing is 225 degrees. So our triangle says that speed equals distance over time, and average speed is the total distance over the total time. So when we're looking for average speed, we want to work out, so we're just going to write average speed or speed, and it's going to be the total distance. So the distance starts at 0, goes up to 30. So the total distance is 30, and the time starts at 10:15 and ends at 11. So that'll be 45 minutes, or, well, we should do it in hours, because the units we want in hours. So it would be 0.75. So 30 divided by 3/4 would be 40. So it's going to be 40 kilometers per hour. So I'm going to write the equation out, the formula out. And we're asked to make y the subject, so I'm just going to get my lines in. And so what's stopping us from having y on its own? Well, this minus 1, how am I going to get rid of it? Add 1 both sides. So we've got x plus 1 equals 9y. What else do we have that stops y from being on its own? Well, there's times 9 here. So we're going to do the opposite, the inverse, which is divide by 9 both sides. And to do that nicely, what we do is we just do it as a fraction. X plus 1 over 9 equals y. So therefore y is x plus 1 over 9. Factorising is the opposite of expanding, so instead of multiplying something out of a bracket, we're putting it in a bracket. I'm going to start just by putting the bracket down. And we're going to ask ourselves, what number can we divide out of 18 and 33? And we need the biggest number we can divide out of both of them. So we're essentially looking for its highest common factor. So 18 and 33, that would be 3. And there's no letter we can divide out of both of them because 33 doesn't have a letter. Next we ask ourselves, 3 times what is 18x? Well, 3 times 6 is 18. 3 times 6x will be 18x. Then we ask ourselves, what times 3 is 33? And that's obviously going to be 11. And you can expand that. 3 times 6x is 18x. 3 times 11 is 33. So we know we've got the right answer. So our answer is 3 brackets 6x plus 11. So we're told the length of this rectangle is u, and the width is u plus 2. Doesn't matter which way around we do it. And we're told the area is 80. So we can actually write an equation from this. So u times u plus 2, so that's the length times the width, is equal to the area, which is 80. So let's expand this. And what we're going to do is we're going to put everything to the same side. So all I'm going to do here is subtract 80 from both sides. And so we've got u squared plus 2u minus 80 equals 0. Now we're going to be using quadratics, so we're going to factorise this. And so we need 2 numbers that add together to make 2 and times together to make minus 80. So I'm going to put my brackets out. So we're going to have u at the start of the brackets. And let's have a think. So it's going to be 8 and 10. And one of them will be positive, one of them will be negative. Well, to add them together to make 2, the 10 will have to be positive, and then the 8 would have to be negative. And then minus 8 times 10 is minus 80. Okay, last thing is we get each of our equations equal to, each of our brackets equal to 0. So we can solve them. Let's just do this in normal colour. So u minus 8 equals 0. And let's solve that. And so we're going to add 8 both sides. And we've got u equals 8. And we're going to do the same for this right hand bracket. So u plus 10 equals 0. Get our lines in. And take away 10 both sides. So u equals minus 10. Now it might get confusing because it says find the value of u, but a length needs to be positive. So this minus 10 is not the correct answer. Our correct answer will be 8. And we can actually check this because if I fill in the value of 8, so we can have 8 at the top here, and 8 plus 2, which is 10. 8 times 10 is 80. So we know that we've got the right answer. So we're asked to express TQ in terms of P and Q. Well, we've got another Q here, because all of these are congruent parallelograms. And we have a P there. So if we're starting at T and getting to Q, we can go along this path here and down this path here. So we're going backwards down Q, in fact backwards down 2 lots of Q, and then the correct way down P. So it's either minus 2Q plus P or P minus 2Q. There's a lot going on with this question, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in all of the time signs that we don't normally show. So we've got 10 times 12x times y to the power of 4 times 13 times x to the power of 4 times y to the power of 4. And I'm going to reorder these to put the numbers together, first of all. And with multiplying, it doesn't matter which way around you do it. So I'm not changing anything. I'm going to put the x's together. And I'm going to put the y's together. So, first thing to do is 9 times 13, which is just 117. Then we've got x to the power of 12 times x to the power of 4. Now we know when we multiply two powers of the same base, and the base is x on both of those, we just add the powers. So it's 12 plus 4, which is 16. So it'll be x to the power of 16. And then y to the power of 4 times y to the power of 4, we just add them together, so it's y to the power of 8. There are a few different ways you could answer this question. I'm going to do it with a tree diagram, but you didn't need to draw a tree diagram to answer this question. So we've got our first tree, which is our first bus. And the choices are male and female. And we've got our second kind of branch, I suppose. And it's still male and female. And this is our second bus. So the property of male on a first bus is 9 over 15. And therefore the property of female is 1 minus 9 over 15, which would be 6 over 15. Male on the second bus is 7 over 15. And so female would be 8 over 15, because they need to add up to 1. And it's independent, so these will be the same. And the question is basically asking what is the probability that both will be female. So to have both female, we need to have gone down this line at the start and then this line again. Okay, so looking at the fractions along the way, it's 6 over 15 and 8 over 15. The word and in probability means times. So whenever you're finding the probability of getting to an outcome, so this outcome will be FF, because they're both female, you are multiplying the fractions that you go across. So it would be 6 over 15 times 8 over 15. So 6 times 8 is 48. And times the bottoms, 15 times 15 is 225. Now you can actually cancel that down. So what you can do is you can divide top and bottom by 4. And that will give you 16, is it 4? No, you can times top and bottom by 3, and that would be 16 over 75. So either 48 over 225 or 16 over 75. So to answer this question, you need to just know the answer off by heart. There is a diagram that can help us actually get there. And if we just draw a right angle triangle and put the lengths as 1, not right angle here, we can use Pythagoras, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, to work out the fact that this is going to be root 2. Because it's an isosceles triangle, this angle here is going to be 45 degrees, and same with the bottom right one, but we're not interested in that. When we label it with our marked angle here, we've got the adjacent is here and the hypotenuse is here. Now we know from trigonometry that cos x equals a over h. The angle is going to be cos 45 and a is going to be 1 and h is going to be root 2. Now, this is a bit of a strange one with 1 over root 2 because we need to actually be able to rationalise the denominator. And basically what that means, if you haven't done surds yet or you aren't doing surds, is you times top and bottom by root 2. And so we end up with root 2 over 2. So if you ever see 1 over root 2 is absolutely fine as an answer, but if you ever see the answer as root 2 over 2, the two are actually exactly the same. So writing 1 over root 2 is fine, or writing root 2 over 2 is also correct. First thing we notice is that there is a square here. So we can work out what this length is going to be. It's also going to be 40 centimeters. And whenever we're working out the area of a shaded area, we're normally working out the area of two shapes and subtracting one from the other. And this question's really no different. So we're going to start off working out the area of the square. And all we need to do now for that is 40 times 40, which will be 1,600 centimeters squared. I normally only put units in our answer. The next thing we're going to do is work out the area of the circle, but to do that we need to work out what the diameter of the circle is, and if you notice that the diameter of the circle is just 40 degrees. It's the same as the width of the square, or height of the square. So if the diameter is 40 degrees, the radius would be 20 degrees. So for the circle, for the area of the circle, we're going to do pi times the radius, which is 20 squared, and 20 squared would be 400, so this will be 400 pi. This question's asking us to leave it in terms of pi, so we're going to do that. Now next we're going to work out the all of the corners, so that includes these three here and this one. So I'll say, like, I don't know, 4 corners. Just try and explain to the person marking my exam what I'm doing. And to do that, we're just going to do the square, take away the circle. So 1,600, take away 400 pi. Now we can't actually do anything more than that. That is our answer. So it's just, we just leave it at that. And to work out just the shaded bit, which is this bit here, they are 4 equal amounts that we've got for these corners. So just one corner, which is the shaded bit, will be the 4 corners divided by 4. Now we've got a kind of fraction here. We can divide all of the terms by 4. So that will leave 1 at the bottom, 100 pi here. And this will be 1,600 divided by 4 is 400. So we're just cancelling the fraction, and actually we leave it as 400 minus 100 pi. And that indeed is our answer. You can't simplify that any further. A box plot starts with the lowest value, then it goes to the lower quartile. So we have the lowest value, then the lower quartile, and then we have the medium, then the upper quartile, and then the highest value. So lowest value is at 1 on this one, and normally we just put a little kind of line at the end here. So we're going to put a line at 1, and I'm just going to put that line there. Ooh, a little bit further to the right. There we go. And our lower quartile is 9, which is kind of where the box starts. So we're just going to start a box there. We're just going to connect these up. There we go. And our median is 11, so we're just going to show that. Quite a thin box plot so far. Now it says the interquartile range is 5. Now the interquartile range is the distance here. So that's 5. So it's going to be 5 more than the lower quartile. If the lower quartile is at 9, it would be 9 plus 5, which will be 14. So if we get our line at 14, and then complete our box plot. Here we go. Now the range is the total distance of, or the total width of our box plot. So that's 17. So that's going to be 17 higher than the lowest value. Now the lowest value is 1, so 1 plus 17 is going to be 18. So I'm just going to, there we are. And we're going to have that at 18. And again, I'm just going to put a line there. We're going to first of all get x equal to the 0.151151, blah, blah, blah. And what we need to do is we need to pull all of the recurring numbers in front of the decimal point, or at least one instance of them. So I need to times it by 1,000. So we're going to do that. times by 1,000, and we'll get 151.151.151, blah, blah, blah. What we're going to do now is we're going to subtract going downwards. So 1000x take away x would be 999x, and then 151.151.151, etc. Take away 0.151.151, etc. will just be 151. Get our solving lines in, because the next thing we're going to do is divide both sides by 999. And so we end up with x equals 151 divided by 999, or over 999. And that's our answer. When you square root a fraction, you can actually just square root the top and square root the bottom. So square root of 9 is 3, square root of 16 is 4. So that is equivalent to 3 over 4. The first thing to notice is that 125 is 5 cubed. So instead of 1 over 125, it would be 1 over 5 cubed. And we know that when you have a negative power, it actually turns into the reciprocal of that number. So 5 to the power of minus 3 becomes 1 over 5 to the power of 3. So n is going to be this minus 3. Now notice the format that it wants the answer does not have a square root at the bottom, so we are going to be rationalising the denominator with this. So I'm just going to write out the question, just so we've got a start. And notice here we've got this 6 plus root 2. Now you might think you rationalise the denominator by timesing top and bottom by root 2, and that would get rid of the root 2 there, but it would actually create a 6 root 2 at the bottom, so it won't rationalise the denominator. The trick here is, imagine that the bottom here is a bracket, and what you want to do is times top and bottom of this fraction by the same bracket, but with the different sign, the opposite sign in the middle. So instead of 6 plus root 2, it's going to be 6 minus root 2. So we're going to have 6 minus root 2. Okay? And when we do that, we can imagine that there's going to be brackets at the top as well. We've got 2 plus root 2 and 6 minus root 2 at the top. And then we've got the 6 plus root 2 and the 6 minus root 2. Now, the reason why we do that is you will see when we expand the bottom one, but I'm going to start with expanding the top one. And it doesn't really matter which method you take to expand it. I'm just going to use the grid method because it's a little bit clearer maybe. And so we've got 2 plus root 2, and we've got 6 minus root 2. So 6 times 2 is going to be 12, and that's going to be 6 root 2 minus 2 root 2, and then that would be minus and a positive is a negative, and then root 2 times root 2 is just going to be 2. And so when we add these two together, we're going to get 10. When we add these two together, we're going to get plus 4 root 2. And I'm going to now do the bottom one. So this one was this expansion here, and I'm now going to do this expansion here, and we're going to do it down here. And so we've got 6 plus root 2 and 6 minus root 2. So 6 times 6 is 36, 6 times root 2 is 6 root 2, 6 times negative root 2 is just negative 6 root 2, and then we've got a minus and a positive make them negative, and then root 2 times root 2 is just minus 2. And so when we add them together, we've got the 36 and the minus 2 there, so that would be 34. And then 6 root 2 take away 6 root 2 is just going to be nothing. So that actually expands to be an integer, not a surd. And that's why we picked the opposite sign, is because whenever we do that, we get rid of the root 2 and we just get a nice number at the end. Okay, so when we put those in, and we end up with 10 plus 4 root 2 at the top, which is our answer here, over 34, which is our answer here. And let's just make that a bit nicer. There we are. And that's our answer down here. Now we're looking to see whether we can cancel at all, and if you look, we can actually divide everything by 2. So divide the bottom by 2 and we get 17. Divide the 10 by 2, we get 5, and we've got to divide all 3 terms by 2, so we get a 2 there. So we actually end up with 5 plus 2 root 2 over 17. So our missing numbers, looking back at the question, A would be the 5, B would be 2, and the C 17. We've got to subtract 1 outside the function, so all that means is we move the graph down 1. So instead of here, it's going to be down 1. Instead of here, it's going to be down 1. This bottom bit here will be somewhere down there. And just everything will be down 1. So it's not that easy to sketch, but we'll try our best to sketch it out. And we want to draw exactly the same graph, just down 1. You can complete a unique version of this paper by going to our onmaths site. Onmaths is full of free content to help you prepare for your exams, such as topic-based papers, demon questions, and mini mocks. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing.